All right, folks, what is going on? Hopefully, you had a fantastic weekend. I did. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's been a great weekend, and this is episode 260 of the First and Frame Rate Show. I am VF Baller, and like I said, this has been a crazy weekend. Uh, did you guys see like that game with the Chargers and the Raiders? I mean, Jesus Christ! It. I mean, just for a season finale, that was just outright phenomenal. I mean, you just couldn't ask for a better ending than that. But a lot of people would have thought that game would have ended in a tie. But at the end of the day, the Raiders end up sending their division rivals, home, and you just got to think about it at the end of the day. If that was your division rival, would you help them out? Because trust me, if the Falcons and the Saints was in the same situation, I want the Falcons to kick that field goal. I don't want the Saints nowhere near the playoffs. But that's a whole other story for another day. Because the Saints aren't in the playoffs because the 49ers end up picking off Matthew Stafford and killed all the dreams of the Saints. Even though that we came up short, and we're going to talk about that very shortly. This entire season of the Falcons, how that go, and what's going to happen going forward. So if this is your first time here, welcome. Welcome to the First and Frame Rate Show. Over here we talk about Atlanta Falcons. Also talk about Georgia Southern football. And with that being said, there's going to be a little bit more added to it, obviously, because it's the off season. So I'll be talking more playoff stuff because the NFL playoffs is always a good time. It's one of the better times of the years. Unlike the college football playoff where there's a bunch of blowouts, these teams actually play tough and they're close games. And it's pretty much close games throughout the entire season. But, the playoffs is always a good time. And so I'm going to be expanding a little bit more on that for obvious reasons. And I just can't talk about the Falcons every day under these circumstances. I mean, after the Super Bowl, we may get back into it, but for right now, we're going to talk about the Falcons up until the playoffs actually start. Like I said, welcome if it's your first time here. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, share this podcast, let people know what I'm doing over here, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to this on the podcast avenues, give me a 5-star rating, hopefully, if you like the content, and subscribe over there as well so you can listen to this podcast and download it on the go. You don't have to worry about using all your bandwidth to listen to me. So let's go ahead and get into this. The Falcons end up the season ending at 7-10. Unfortunately, that is 2 games off of what I thought they would be. I thought they would be 9-8. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out. And to be quite honest, based on everything that has happened this year, what we know now, I'm actually surprised that they won 7 games. Now, when you look at the way the season started against the Eagles, losing that game 32-6. We immediately saw the problems with this team. Even when Calvin Ridley was playing, we saw Kyle Pitts out there. The team, most of the people on the team was actually out there full strength, but we saw the offensive line issues. We saw them immediately, and it was hard it was hard to miss. So after us losing that game, we ended up going to play against the Buccaneers. And in that game, we lose that game as well. We end up seeing another problem. Not only that the offensive line was an issue, even though they did a little bit better than the first game, we saw that our receivers couldn't get any separation. And I'm not talking about, the tight end or what. I'm talking about wide receivers. None of them could get much separation at all. So we end up having to not only try to get the ball out quickly because of no pass protection, is the fact that the receivers couldn't get pretty much open. So we end up losing that game. We end up playing against the Giants. We end up winning that game. Young Wei Koo, I think he hit a final a game-winning field goal, but that was a much better looking game overall. I mean, everybody played pretty well, but it's the Giants. So what can you say? We end up going up against the Washington football team after that, losing that game 34-30. This game had a reminiscence of what we saw in the past. We end up getting a lead, we lose a lead, we blowing leads. That's what that game pretty much was about. And it was a game that we should have won. We did see some situation. We started to see some we started to see some production out of Calvin Ridley that just was not really excuse me, that was not really positive. He didn't look like himself. He was running away from contact. He wasn't really trying to get open. And this was one of the first games that we actually saw a decline in Calvin Ridley. Going up, we went overseas to play against the Jets. We ended up winning that game 27-20. I don't think Calvin Ridley went along for the game. And this is the beginning of, we really started to see the beginning of the whole situation with Calvin Ridley. He did not, I don't think he went along, and I think we had an injured receiver. I think around this time Isaiah Oliver got injured as well. So we really started to see the decline of the team. But we did win that game. We come back to the States and play against the Dolphins, and we got a pretty good win against the Dolphins, 30-28. Once again, it was another close game, but we managed to win that game, and we kept moving along. 2-game winning streak. Thought it was going to be 3 in a row. Thought it was going to be 3 in a row when we went up against the Panthers, losing that game 19-13. Sam Darnold ran all over us as a quarterback. That was pretty embarrassing. But the fact of the matter is, this is where everything, for the most part, started to really unravel. Calvin Ridley finally said that he had to step away. We didn't have a number one receiver. We had to pretty much rely on Zacchaeus. We had to rely on Russell Gage. We had to rely on Tajay Sharp. Pretty much 3 guys that are probably like number 3s at best at receiver to step up and do what they have to do to keep this passing game going. Now, Kyle Pitts was still coming on as a tight end. I think he had a 100-yard receiving game earlier in the season. We started to see a little bit more from him, so that was a positive sign on that end. Also, around this time, we started to see the emerge of Cordell Patterson. Excuse me. We saw the emerge of Cordell Patterson, and Cordell Patterson pretty much started to be a do-it-all type of player. He ran the ball out the backfield. He caught passes as a receiver. He did a little bit of everything, and that was really good to see. And when we went to go play the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, he pretty much caught the ball to seal the game for us down the sideline. Ended up winning that game 27-25. Come from behind victory on that one. Pretty good win right there. So things are still in motion to say, okay, this could be a positive outlook on the team, or whatever the case may be. But here we go. We look at the next 2 games, and this is where I kind of felt like, okay, this is probably like the end of the season here. And there's a lot of ups and downs on the season, so bear with me. I felt like the Cowboys playing against the Falcons, I don't know if Dan Quinn has something to prove or whatever the case may be. They ended up beating us by 40 points. And we couldn't do anything. It was really bad. And this is where I thought like the team, for the most part, was just going to unravel. I really thought that this was going to be the end-all, be-all. And we're probably not going to win another game for the rest of the season. So, end up losing that game 43-3. Then we turn right back around and go play the Patriots. I think it was a Monday Night Football game. End up getting shut out in this game. Mac Jones and company and that defense pretty much shut out the Falcons 25-0. And now we're starting to see like, okay, this is really an issue. After us losing to the Panthers, barely beating the Saints, then we get blown out by the Cowboys and shut out against the Patriots. I'm like, all right, now this is a problem. What's going to happen here? Well, we end up going to play against the Jaguars. We end up beating the Jaguars 21-14. All right, Jaguars 21-14. It's the Jaguars, okay? We end up winning that game. Then we turn right back around and play the Buccaneers once again. That game was a little more competitive than I thought it would, but we ended up losing 30-17. Great pick 6 by, I think it was Marlon Davidson. Great pick 6. Looked like that could have been the turning tide of the game, but once again, our offense is not able to move the ball. I haven't even talked about the running game yet, which I will get to, but this was an issue all the way out for the entire season. Jump over to the Falcons playing against the Panthers the following week. Panthers lose that game. We end up beating them 29-21. Pretty good bounce back on a division rival because, they beat us in a game that we should have beat them. And we turn back around and we win that game. So it's looking pretty good. And at this point, when I said it looked like the bottom was going to fall. Even at this point, the Falcons had a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. Believe it or not. All they had to do, for the most part, if they went out, or if they definitely would have beat the 49ers, would have been a serious discussion about what's going to happen for the rest of this game, for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything with this team. I mean, we just wasn't able to do anything against the 49ers, and we ended up losing that game 31-13. And now I'm thinking, okay, this is where the playoff hopes are just going to start to slip away. Because if we beat the 49ers, we would have been in a really good position, very good position, because we had to play the Falcons. We had to play the Lions and turn around and play the Bills and the Saints, which honestly, I thought all three of those was actually winnable games. And we ended up beating the Lions, and we lost to the Bills, which that game was a little more competitive than I thought it would be as well. I mean, 15-29. The Bills are a pretty good team. I thought it was going to be I thought it was winnable. But that was just the bias side of me, honestly. But at the end of the day, the Falcons didn't make much of a game. Made it a game for the most part. But the Saints and the Falcons, the game that we just witnessed the day before, the Saints end up beating the Falcons 30-20. The Saints came out pretty much playing pretty decent. What killed us more than anything was the turnovers. I mean, Mike Davis fumbled the ball twice. There was an interception on the sideline, which you could kind of blame that on Matt Ryan. You could blame that on Matt Ryan. You know, he's trying to be a little bit too aggressive, and in a situation where you really don't have the receivers for it. Now, it's not to take away from Russell Gage. Russell Gage stepped up big time this year, but I think he threw that to Russell Gage. But nevertheless, I just feel like I don't know if that was the move at that moment. I mean, that kind of hurt. And like I said, the two fumbles by Mike Davis, and that didn't help matters at all. We ended up losing the game by 10, garbage time touchdown at the end, but we made it look respectable, 30-20. Mike Davis was out here. He put out on Twitter that he was very disappointed in himself. I totally get it. I understand. This was a situation where it could have been a beautiful thing, but when you look at the total situation with this team somewhat overachieved. Knowing what this team is actually made of, especially like after week 4, I'm absolutely surprised that they won 7 games. This offensive line was just abysmal, and this is one of the reasons why Mike Davis was, disappointed in himself. But you can't run the ball with the offensive line like this. You can't pass the ball with the offensive line like this. It just doesn't work out that way. And with that being said, going forward, they're going to have to do something about this offensive line, point blank, period. Now, I will go on record to say right now, all these people thinking about Matt Ryan being traded or moved, Matt Ryan's going to be here probably for the rest of his contract. That's just how the way it is. Unless something seriously happens, I don't think Matt Ryan's going to be moved. To be quite honest, I don't think Matt Ryan has done anything to warrant him to be moved, but you know how that goes. People come out with pitchforks if you try to defend Matt Ryan, but the honest God truth, I don't see there's another quarterback out there better, unless if you really want to rebuild. And if people want to really if they really want to go down this road to rebuild, this is going to be tough, because this is the thing, the same people who want to talk about rebuild are going to be the same ones if they did rebuild, they get a quarterback that's young and he's struggling. Case in point, if Justin Fields was here, and Justin Fields had to deal with this offensive line, he would have been in a much worse situation than he is now in Chicago. I 100% believe that. And I don't care anybody. If Trey Lance, Mac Jones, I don't care what quarterback you got. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. I don't care who you got. If you got an offensive line like this, nothing's going to get done. And I mean, if you want to debate me on that, thinking that, we could just get a scrambling quarterback. No, you see how the Ravens are going right now. You see the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm not saying that a mobile quarterback can't get it done, but do you see what the Baltimore Ravens are going through right now? You know what I mean? So it's just, at the end of the day, I think we're just going to be stuck with the quarterback that we got. I think we could be successful with him, but we just need better pieces. First and foremost, those trenches got to change. That offensive line, that defensive line. To be quite honest, the secondary wasn't as bad as it could have been. I know Fabian Monroe had his issues. Lord knows I know he did. But overall, A.J. Terrell has done enough to hold that secondary down to be okay. But we're going to need somebody to go on the other side of A.J. Terrell. Definitely going to need somebody to go on the other side. It's a passing league. We're going to need some corners that can shut down some of these receivers. So that's going to be a priority. We're going to need that. But first and foremost, I don't care about anything else. We need to get some type of stability on the offensive line, whether it be through the draft or whether it be through the through free agency. Because going forward, you can't let Matt Ryan or any quarterback that's back there to get smacked around like that. You can't have Mike Davis, Cordell Patterson, or Quadri Allison. You can't have any of those guys cannot find creases and holes to run through. And that's what the problem is. Yeah, you're going to have some every now and then that, a running back is going to get through. But we know that what was the problem with this offensive line. I mean, the offensive line was just terrible. It was terrible. And it's something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. And I talked about this before. I think it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. So I don't know if they're going to do anything in free agency or whatever the case may be, or the draft. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And I know there's some people, some pundits already talking about Matt Ryan is going to be moved or he's going to be staying, or what's going to happen with Grady Jarrett, what's going to be happening with Arthur Smith and his decision making. Nobody knows. This is literally 24 hours, little less than 24 hours that the game's been over. Nobody knows nothing yet. Nobody knows nothing. But with that being said, when something happens and something's found out, who's actually going to be really satisfied with the situation? Because if Matt Ryan goes, you're going to have some, it's just so divisive. If he goes, people are going to be upset. If he stays, people going to be upset. What's going to happen if we decide to get certain offensive tackles or guards or a center that we may not like? It's so many variables. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to trust what Arthur Smith has in order. That's all I can do. I'm going to trust what he does because he was able to do something with nothing. You got 7 wins out of a team that had no business winning 7 games. You got some production out of Russell Gage. He's about to be a free agent. No telling what's going to happen with him. If he goes somewhere, he's probably going to be a great slot receiver for somebody. And that's something that we could use here in Atlanta. But first and foremost, we're going to need some receivers as well. Because Calvin Ridley, I don't know if he's coming back, but we need another receiver that can catch the ball and actually, get some separation. We get those two things out of a receiver. I don't care where he's drafted at, or is he a free agent, or he goes undrafted. If he can do those things, catch the ball and get separation, we got a winner. I'd rather have a big physical receiver that can do that as well, but we have a winner if we can do that. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about this down the road of what the needs are for the Falcons. I'm already on record saying that the offensive line is a priority. I think that should be priority 1. These guys on this offensive line is getting pushed around. I saw how Cameron Jordan was pushing around Caleb McGarry. It's ridiculous. I've actually seen Jalen Mayfield get pushed around a little bit. And like I said, I think I give Jalen Mayfield a little bit of a pass because he's a rookie, but still he has to show up in year number 2. So this is what's going to be happening with that. Now, the second thing we want to work on, I would probably say maybe pass rush. Cornerback number 2 depends on where we are on the draft and who do we get and who's available. I'll say edge rush, edge rush, cornerback number 2, or probably a wide receiver. Wide receiver is probably further back on the back burner because I feel like we probably can get one in free agency. So even though we got those 2 second-round picks, maybe a third one, depends on how things go with Ridley, we could be in a situation where we can be moving some good pieces here to Atlanta to be a little bit better. Because I've been on record saying that I don't feel like a rookie can make a quick impact. I know at the end of the day, I know I was wrong with that. I was wrong for that because some rookies come in here and make an impact right away. Micah Parsons is one of those guys, and there's a couple other rookies that came in that made an impact immediately. Hell, I'm a hypocrite because Matt Ryan did it. He came in and made a impact immediately. End up winning 11 games for the season as a rookie. So it can happen, and it's something that I need to work on as far as evaluating these rookies, because I think I do an okay job of evaluating them, but I have to be honest and be like, okay, some of these rookies could come in and make an immediate impact, and I know I didn't do a good job of talking about that in the weeks past, but now I'm on record. I had to backtrack and say, hey man, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to, really take some value into some of these rookies because they do a pretty good job, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. I think these guys, I think at the end of the day, the Falcons are going to be okay. If I have to give Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot a grade, I will give them a C+ for what they've done. They were basically handed a situation where the number one receiver wanted out, ended up trading him. The one that's supposed to step up to be number one receiver stepped away, and you had some injuries here and bad breaks there, and the offensive line wasn't stepping up, and some guys in the secondary wasn't doing good, and you got some linebackers like Deion Jones is just not producing where he can. But you turn around, you got Foye Oluokun, which is another free agent. Hopefully he signs with Atlanta. Foye Oluokun stepped up big time. Russell Gage stepped up big time. Cordell Patterson stepped up big time. AJ Terrell has been so consistent this entire season, and it's not more you can ask for. So I think at the end of the day, I think the Falcons are going to be okay. They won 7 games this year. We're going to look at some of the moves, what they're going to do, and see where this team goes into 2022. So I will continue to talk about these Falcons. Georgia Southern Eagles, not much on the Georgia Southern front. Got a kicker and a long snapper committed today. That's awesome. Well, I would say on Sunday because, now it's Monday. But got some commits over there, so that's great. But the Atlanta Falcons right now, they only go nowhere to go but up. And I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be okay. Year 2 is going to really define what's going on with Arthur Smith and company. And I think if he can't turn this around to the point where they win at least 10 games or 9 games, then we're probably going to have a problem with this personnel. But that's too far down the road. We'll talk about that later on. So that's pretty much it for this episode. Just evaluating the season, how things played out, kind of narrated through what happened. Initial thoughts going forward. I told you who I think we need to pick as far as priority. Offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, wide receiver. I don't think the other ones after the offensive line is not necessarily in order, but I believe that we need to get some offensive line talent in here that can push some guys around and give Matt Ryan some protection and some time to throw the ball. Because I think when he gets time to throw the ball, Matt Ryan is a great decision maker, in my opinion. He had his moments. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that he didn't, but he does make good decisions with the ball when he has protection. Last time he had really good protection, Alex Mack and company was on that offensive line. He ended up having an MVP season and they went to the Super Bowl. But we don't go talk too much further about the Super Bowl, but you want to get this guy some help as far as personnel. So we'll see how that goes. If you like this episode, this is the end right here. Hit the like button, share this episode, let people know what I'm doing over here. Subscribe if you can. If you're on the podcast side, go over there and give me a higher rating. Let people know what I'm doing as well. Subscribe to the podcast so you'll know anytime when I put up a episode, it'll pop right on up, ready for you to download. If you got the notification bells on YouTube, as soon as I put this up, you should get a notification bell and you will know what time it is when I put up content. So thank you guys once again. I will be up out of here. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. I will be back tomorrow with another episode. You guys be easy. You guys be blessed. Peace.